Pain of standing still is actually the perfect sweet spot for your next breakthrough. I have been talking about this topic of starting before you're ready, starting before you have clarity. Yesterday and the day before, I talked about this concept of, the 80-20, where when you focus your attention, like 80% of your attention on things, usually it only really impacts 20%. You could see that in sales, like 80% of your clients, they only bring in 20% of the revenue for your company. You could also see that with your efforts. And I use that analogy to really look clearly, like, what am I really doing here? Like, how am I spending my days? Because I felt like I was standing still. And I really saw and had to confess that a lot of the things that I was doing was internally. It was just working very, very delicately still, very purpose driven still, but in a way that it still kind of kept me safe. And so I was explaining how, you at a certain moment have to bridge that gap between where you are and where you want to go. And a lot of times fear comes up. Apart from fear, the other thing that really comes up is perfectionism. And perfectionism is actually still fear disguised as, okay, what will people say and think if I, show up exactly as I am right now without clarity, without knowing the right words, without maybe doing it the right way. After trying very different ways of doing this, like showing up on YouTube, for example, um, I started to more and more let go of the things I thought I needed. It started with the script. I dropped that really fast. And then it was like, no, I don't need a team. No, I don't need all these ideas of what I need to create. I quickly understood, like, I just need to put myself out there. And for that, to do that, I had to really let go of perfectionism. I chose to do everything as an art form because I knew that that's the freedom that I was seeking, to give myself that freedom of just showing up without that fear of, oof, I will look like a beginner, or I have nothing to say, or whatever it could be. To let that fear go, I really channeled it as, this is a form of expression, this is my art form, and I really am going to let go of that perfectionism that was holding me back. And the magical thing that happened was this: it started to become something like I do every day, like brushing my teeth or, walking my 10,000 steps. It became a non-negotiable. It became something that I didn't have to put on my calendar because I made a decision at the end of last year. I'm going to show up in 2026 every day, um, for the whole year, not a month, not a week, no, a whole year. I'm going to commit myself to this, and non-negotiable. And I really had to say that and do that for me to move over that perfectionism slash fear of judgment. And what I got out of that was liberation. And the past days, I've been really reminiscing on, the steps that I've been taking consciously and unconsciously and what it has led me to do. It has led me to now really find my voice and understand more and more deeply that I'm exactly doing what I always wanted to do. And it was all these little tiny steps that I made in between, where I was and where I am right now, that helped me with my own breakthrough, that really liberated me. I think in one of my episodes, and I don't even recall which one it was, I literally said this was the last final thing that I wanted to do and I was afraid of doing, and I jumped. But I jumped after a lot of detours, a lot of trial and errors. And eventually I was kind of forced to basically let go of um, that perfectionism, that fear of, I have nothing to say, there's not enough creativity. And that is honestly, apart from what I said in the previous episode about how things that happened in the past can be the ghosts that are still haunting us, those little voices that are keeping us small and keeping us safe. And, you know, perfectionism is very, very similar to that. And I can tell you, I cannot even stress enough how much I have felt liberated just by allowing myself to drop that, just by allowing myself to show up exactly as I show up with my friends, to show up just exactly as I, walk through life. Because, yeah, people will either love it or hate it. But even that I don't take personal because, if you look at it, I don't have connections with everybody in my real life either. Some people are just acquaintances and some people you don't really resonate with and some people you absolutely love and adore. So it's also something that I really was like very clear on before I started this journey in 2026. Like, hey, don't like expect people not to like you too. Actually, it's normal. So don't even focus on that and really focus on your expression, your art. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I am doing something that I think not a lot of people would consider doing and maybe would be able to continue doing. And therefore, I'm like, hey, I'm just going to show you as I'm looking back to my journey now that I'm 1 month in, what I had to let go of, all these, fears and all of that to do that. And something that's funny that last weekend I wanted to create an episode and my charger wasn't working because it got in contact with water. And so I used that momentum to be like, okay, I'm just going to show you guys about my life here as an expat mom. And that became, the story. That one got so many views. It was just a 3-minute video, maybe four. It wasn't perfect. It was very, bubbly because I'm bumpy because I was biking through our little town, and I even forgot half of my son's dodgeball tournament to film it because I was into the game. So long story short, it felt like a struggle before I ended up filming it because I was like, you know what? I really just want to be a mom right now on Sundays, or it was a Saturday. I don't feel like, putting on the camera and talking. I just want to be present with him. And I had to go through that and I had to feel that. Eventually, the answer was so simple. It's like, Ash, you don't have to do that. You can just, you know, basically document what you're doing and let that be it. And because I had to go through that, that's how I'm growing. And that's what actually also inspired me on another episode. It was more about, things that I would used to do internally, behind the scenes. Because that's what my friend said too today, because my best friend and I, we have a lot of contact over voice notes because he lives in another country, in another time zone, but we stay in contact. And she reflected back to me like, hey, Ash, you analyze a lot, not in a psycho way, but like you continuously check how things could be better for the next time. And it's not from this perfectionism state or I should do better, but more from how can I optimize it? And my mind, I train it that way because I feel it's such a waste of time to look at the end of the quarter or end of the year and then think of, what could I've done differently? No, I'm constantly shifting and changing and altering. Like I noticed that the days that I have my son, I'm a single mom and I do co-parenting with his dad. And I noticed that when I have the little one, I go from gear, if you if you drive the stick, you go from 1 to 5. And it's intense. It's like sometimes, especially yesterday when I picked him up from school at 2, and then at 3 he had tutoring class, at 4 he had skate, and at 5 he had soccer until 6:15. We got home at 6:30. And before you know it, like I was just from back to back to back to back. And because he's leaving to the Netherlands soon, I also wanted to work on some more content so that the coming days I have real one-on-one time with him before he leaves. And long story short, I knew Wednesday was gonna be a busy day. And so what I did was I decided to already have the groceries delivered the day before he was with me, right? And so I take note of that to make it as easy and smooth as possible. And it's not control, it's actually optimization. And she said, that's why you go so fast. And yeah, I go fast because I make tiny changes. And the difference being now that is that, you used to do this internally, but I would not show up. And when you don't show up, nothing really changes much, right? Like my life gets optimized, but that desire of, hey, I want to share my gifts, I want to share my energy, I want to share my presence with the world, that can't stop because not just the fear, which we talked about in the previous episode, but also the part of perfectionism. The part of perfectionism when you want to have the clarity because you don't want to look like a fool, because you want to be taken serious. And actually, I was very serious in the past, but that's not me. It's like I was serious because I was taught that way. I was taught to be more serious. And because I have a baby face, I had to, show that I knew what I was talking about. But now I'm like, I'm goofy. I can get serious if I need to. And when it's needed, people will feel it, people will know it. But I'm just goofy and I'm just Ash and I'm very, um, yeah, friendly and open to meet the world. And that's who I truly am. And so I dropped the seriousness. Anyway, I'm not even sure where I'm going here. And I think that's the point of this whole episode. It's like, guys, I give you permission to let go of perfectionism because that in itself is a huge factor of why people don't truly embody their next breakthrough, Because especially for the ones that have already accomplished a lot, I'm talking from experience, people know you from a certain standard. And then it's like, oh, you're a beginner. But to be really honest, you're not a beginner. It's like, let's say you started at high school with basketball. I love the basketball analogies. And you were the best at high school. You were the BT best. But then you get promoted to like, I don't even know how you guys call it because basketball is not a huge sport in Holland. But like in Holland, we more have soccer, football, and it's like you go to the Eredivisie, like the Premier League. That stuff is big. You can't compare that level from, oh, I was just this, very, very talented high school kid that excelled there to the Premier League. Because if you become someone that goes there on a Premier League level, guess what? Everybody is at a high, high level, and maybe you will have to start from the bottom again, but you're already really there, not there. And that's kind of what we tend to forget, like a lot of the skills that I learned from my past things, or I'm still using it. It's just that, yeah, this is new, but I'm also claiming my spot, which is what I said the other day too. It's like I'm claiming my bigness. I want to be surprised by myself. I'm basically just having so much fun, and that is also another thing that I really had to do to bridge that gap from where I was and where I wanted to go. I made it art because if I put targets on it, if I put it like, hey, I have to do it every day, and my goal is 1,000 subscribers within a month, and there is a nuance with manifestation and having goals that have to be smart. But for me, it wasn't about that. For me, it was about, I want to liberate myself. I want to create my art. I want to have that aliveness in me every day. I want to do what I love doing. And I already knew it was this. I didn't know for a long time though. I had to figure that out. I have to really dive deep and find out that I actually always was a performer, an entertainer. I always loved to be at a certain center of attention, and that's not me being arrogant or all full of herself. That's my spirit. And now I'm just giving myself permission to just be me and not let anybody have an opinion about that, because I'm not gonna let that rob me from just living my purpose and what naturally feels that brings me joy. When someone's talented in music, we love what they create for us, right? It's the songs that we can listen to when we have a heartbreak, or when we go to a festival with friends, or when you're just chilling at a restaurant and you hear this beautiful, beautiful song on the background. We want that. And so I'm saying, guys, come out of hiding, stop playing small, you know, let go of that perfectionism. You're so welcome to own your freaking light. And if you need help with that, in the description, you will find the details to work with me. I wish you a beautiful day. Enjoy your weekend, and you will see me tomorrow.